I had a coworker who thought he was the next Elon Musk because he invented the hands-free sandwich holder. It was essentially a construction worker's hard hat with a complex series of wires and a giant binder clip hanging in front of the face. He wore it to the break room and clipped a BLT to it. But the swinging motion of the sandwich meant he just kept getting hit in the nose with bacon. He refused to admit it was a failure, even as mayo started dripping down his forehead and into his eyes. I once made a house call to a customer who couldn't get his electric adjustable bed to work. Apparently, he didn't realize that his electric adjustable bed needed electricity to work. I repaired it by plugging it in. Sigh. My roommate in grad school invented a way to never have to do laundry again. He spray-painted all of his white t-shirts with a heavy-duty industrial waterproof sealant meant for basement foundations. He figured the dirt would just slide right off with a garden hose. In reality, the shirts became as stiff as cardboard and completely non-breathable. He wore one to a party, started sweating immediately, and the sweat had nowhere to go. He looked like he was wearing a personal sauna. My uncle once invented the diet spoon. It was just a regular soup spoon, but he had used a power drill to put 5 massive holes right in the center of the bowl. His logic was that you'd get the flavor of the soup broth, but all the fatty, high-calorie liquids would drain out before they reached your mouth. He spent 3 weeks trying to eat minestrone with it, losing about 10 pounds, purely because he was too frustrated to actually finish a meal. He called it a triumph of engineering. My high school chemistry teacher tried to invent silent Velcro. He thought if he coated the tiny hooks in a thin layer of vegetable oil, they would slide out quietly instead of making that ripping sound. He spent a whole class period trying to demonstrate it with a pair of Velcro sneakers. The shoes stayed silent, mostly because the oil made the Velcro completely useless, and the straps just flopped around. He spent the rest of the day sliding across the linoleum floor like he was on ice. I once worked in the billing office of a hospital. A woman called and said that we had mistakenly billed her for her pet's care and not hers. Also, we didn't even know what we were doing anyway, since she had a dog. She had gotten a CAT scan. I'm an attendant at an escape room. This one couple reserved a haunted house type theme. However, instead of actually solving anything, they spent a few minutes working on the first puzzle, and then crawled into the prop bed in the room and fell asleep. They weren't hurting anything, so we just let them be. About 45 minutes later, they woke up and then straightened the bed up and even put the plastic skeletons back. They then buzzed for the attendant and said they wanted to leave. Weirdest, but honestly, the easiest customers we've ever had. Working at a pet store, a customer came up to me with some cans of cat food. The brand's logo, or advertising or whatever, said Cat's Dinner. The customer wanted to know if that meant she could only feed it to her cat at night. A guy I went to college with invented the Infinite Power Strip. He took a standard surge protector and plugged its own cord into one of its own outlets. He was absolutely convinced that he had created a closed loop of electricity that would provide free power forever. He even brought a lamp to the common room to unveil his discovery. When the lamp didn't turn on, he told us the surge protector just needed a jump start from a wall outlet to get the loop moving. He's still trying. An old friend invented a way to make his car theft-proof by replacing the steering wheel with a pair of vice grips. He thought no thief would know how to drive a car with pliers. He felt like a genius until he had to make a sharp turn to avoid a pothole. The vice grip slipped off the steering column, and he ended up driving straight into a decorative fountain in front of a library. The police officer who arrived at the scene had to hide his laughter while writing the ticket. I was working a hotel's front desk when a guest approached me. Her. I left my purse in a porta-potty at nearby festival. Fortunately, it was still there when I went back, but it was still very stressful for me. So, can I have a room discount? Note: we had nothing to do with the festival, and certainly weren't responsible for her purse or any porta-potties. Sadly for her, the answer was no. My dad once tried to invent a self-cleaning lawn. He spent an entire weekend installing a series of high-powered industrial fans along the perimeter of the backyard. His theory was that whenever a leaf fell, the sensors would trigger the fans and blow the debris into the neighbor's yard automatically. The first time a leaf fell, the fans kicked on with such force they uprooted his prize-winning petunias and blew his lawn chair through the sliding glass door. He dismantled it by Sunday evening. My brother-in-law invented the shower umbrella. It was a small plastic umbrella that strapped to your head like a hat, designed for people who wanted to wash their bodies but didn't want to get their hair or face wet. He didn't realize that the water hitting the top of the umbrella just created a heavy, concentrated curtain of water that made it impossible for him to breathe. He almost drowned in his own shower while trying to prove that his genius invention worked perfectly. My neighbor invented the automatic page turner for people who are too lazy to move their hands while reading. It involved a series of rubber bands and a small motor from a toy car. The problem was that the motor only had one speed: racing. When he turned it on, the device ripped the page out of the book, shredded it, and then slapped him in the face with the remaining spine. He claimed he just needed to calibrate the torque, but his wife threw the prototype in the trash that night. Working at a convenience store, and someone called in one day asking what time we closed. Me: we're open 24/7. Customer: okay, what time is that? An old neighbor of mine invented a way to save money on gas by putting a giant sail on top of his Honda Civic. He genuinely believed that on windy days, he could just shift into neutral and let nature do the work. He spent a Saturday afternoon bolting a PVC pipe frame and a bedsheet to his roof rack. He made it about half a block before a gust of wind caught the sheet, ripped the entire roof rack off the car, and sent his invention tumbling into a neighbor's rose bushes. My roommate once invented what he called the solar-powered flashlight. He was incredibly proud, showing everyone the tiny solar panel he had glued to the top of a plastic casing. The only fatal flaw? It didn't have a battery to store the energy. It literally only worked when the sun was shining directly on the panel. I tried to explain that if it's sunny enough for the light to work, you probably don't need a flashlight. But he just insisted it was for exploring very bright caves.